is Brian Hipser. I am a doctorate out of the School of Biomedical Engineering. I started Drexel in the 90s and when E4 was a thing. I don't know if E4 is still around. It's an enhanced education for engineers, something like that. So it was a 5-year program, and at that point, I met Moshe Kam, who is he's now the dean of engineering at New Jersey Institute of Technology. He was the second year systems professor, and I started working for him. He ended up being my graduate advisor. When I finished my graduate work, my co-advisor was an anesthesiologist from Thomas Jefferson University. He gave me a job. I became a research professor. So first 10 years of my career, I was a assistant research professor in a healthcare system, supporting all the different research projects that attendings and residents had. And then we also ran a lab as well. We did diabetes research. I have type 1 diabetes, so that was sort of my connection. One of the companies that sponsored research with us was Edwards Life Sciences. They later recruited me, and I have been out in California, in Southern California, for the past 8 years. The glucose sensor project that they were working on, that project got shut down. I could spend the whole session describing to you why tight glucose control in the hospital setting, why that failed, but that's for another time. But now I'm into hemodynamics and clinical decision support. So we monitor vital signs for patients in the OR and the ICU, so the operating room and the intensive care unit, and all those physiological signals coming in. Besides displaying that information, now we're starting to try to help clinicians interpret it, because of the volume of data that is coming to them is overwhelming. So we kind of start pointing them in the right direction. We give them suggestions, and so that's kind of the work we do now. All right, who's next?
I can jump in. And Brian, I'm 90% sure you were one of my, you were working with with Moshe, and I think you were helping him with his systems classes, and I'm fairly certain I had you. So
there was
yeah,
a theory that I was just a made-up person, because I managed to avoid doing TA responsibilities. I did all the website administration and things of that nature. So anybody involved in the engineering program would just get emails from Brian Hipser, and I avoided having to actually interface with you guys for the most part.
No, but it's funny because I remember distinctly you had a great signature or a great way to close your emails. I was always impressed by your email etiquette. So anyway, I'll stop there.
All right.
But yeah, so my name is Justin Eggleton. I'm the vice president of spine regulatory affairs at a company called MICRA. I graduated Drexel in 2004. I did a concentration in biomaterials and tissue engineering, and I did most of my research in Dr. Marco Longo's lab. And at the time, we were doing work on nucleus replacements for the inner portion of the spine. And through the course of working in that laboratory and listening to the presentations from other, especially graduate researchers, there was a common theme throughout every presentation. And that theme was, hey, we have this awesome thing that we developed. We have no idea how to get it through FDA. We have no idea how to commercialize it. So after hearing this for probably like 56 times, I was like, you know what, maybe I should go to FDA, because that's where people are getting stuck in the mud, which is kind of a deviation, because I thought I wanted to do R&D, which I think most engineers want to do. And so I contacted FDA. They just happened to be looking for someone with spine experience. So it's great because I had spine experience from Drexel. FDA needed someone with spine experience, so that got me into FDA. And I was the lead reviewer there in the brains for a little over 2 years. And then this consulting firm came searching around, looking for someone with spine experience. And I didn't want to leave FDA because one of the nice things about being there is you kind of get to see what every company is up to. See which companies do things great and see which companies do things not so great. And being at FDA was fantastic because it was great education, probably the best place you could go to learn regulatory. And this consulting firm I thought was great because the big issue I had being at FDA was you see things when the companies are already done. They've already spent millions on the testing, years on the testing. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not great. And a lot more times, often than not, I'd be sitting there like, if they had just like done XYZ a little bit differently a year ago, like they could be on such a better track than they are right now. Then I'm about to tell them that they are. So going to this consulting firm allowed me to, take on more risk, but also be involved in projects from the start, from when they were just ideas on paper. And so I've been with that consulting firm for about 16 years now, still focusing mostly on spinal implants. We do everything from spine, orthopedics, neurology, cardiovascular, combination products, digital health, AI, machine learning, etc. And really like to bring things to market and add value to the commercialization. So I'll stop there and I'll take up all the time.
I guess I'll go after Justin in chronological order here. I did my undergrad the same time Justin did at Drexel and BIOMED. When I was in undergrad, I was a member of the dance ensemble and the dance team. When I was in undergrad, our undergraduate class was only the second one to graduate from Drexel BIOMED. And at the time, I don't know if Justin ran into this thing, there wasn't a lot of co-op jobs. And so I went to Dr. Honorall at the time and I said, I have no interview requests. I came to Drexel to work. I came to Drexel to get a co-op. How do I get one? And she put me in contact with a Dr. Steve Kurtz, who now runs the Implant Research Center over at Drexel and is also a principal at Exponent, where I work now. And they got me an independent co-op job. And I showed up, I interviewed, I didn't know what I was going to do. I said, I don't know what a biomed engineer does, but I'm game to try anything. And I tried it for 6 months and I never left. And I'm still there now. We're at year 21. And so I am a consultant in their biomedical engineering and sciences practice. I do a lot of my consulting actually working with Justin a lot on submissions and helping clients get their devices through the regulatory process. I run our international implant retrieval program. So anytime a part comes out of somebody's body, the company has an obligation to report on it and review that device and help just get clinical data to the FDA, help improve their product as part of the product lifecycle, that sort of thing. So I run all those programs for lots of the major medical manufacturers out there. I also am part of litigation matters, so people that are in lawsuits with regards to medical devices, and we serve as expert witnesses on a lot of those cases. So I am also a co-op employer, and so I have employed some of the other panelists here today, have come through our doors. So I can answer any questions about that as well for any of the people that are here today.
I can go next. So my name is Priyanka Shah. I graduated in 2009. I worked through the BSMS program concentrating in biomechanics and human performance. And Lauren actually paved the way. She opened up a lot of opportunities for a lot of future generations of dragons. She hired me at Exponent, where I got really passionate about the orthopedic space. I focused the first half of my career so far in orthopedics and regenerative medicine, just really loved the spectrum of replacing to regrowing joints. And after many years in research and product development, I was just looking to stretch in different ways, always passionate about med tech, but open to different opportunities. So I went back and I did my MBA And from there, I kind of jumped to the business side. So now I work in corporate strategy and business development. I'm currently with Cardinal Health. And it's been interesting and exciting in its own way. They have a really strong orthopedics and regenerative medicine portfolio, but also much broader than that, where our products flow through 90% of hospitals in the US. And so I think I found that bringing innovative products or helping to bring innovative products to patients is interesting, but also growing those businesses to get great products to even more patients is also fulfilling and challenging in a different way. So that's where I am today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think I might be next. So my name is Kieran Murthy. I graduated from Drexel with both my bachelor's and master's in 2014. I was concentrating in biomaterials and tissue engineering at the time. So when I graduated, I went a slightly different route, where I was originally thinking that I was going to go work in industry for a while and then come back and get my PhD at that time. But then most of my co-ops while I was at Drexel were all research-based. So working in like drug discovery and then working in labs at Drexel at the time. But then once I started working in industry, I actually fell in love with what I was doing there. So my original plan was to do contract work for a while before going back to academia. But then, so I started off as a process engineer in working at Boston Scientific in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And when I was there, I learned, that was when my eyes were open to this whole other aspect of the world, because from what I saw at Drexel is a lot of the education was focused on research and development, and seeing how we can build new products and come up with innovative solutions. What I saw there was how we actually build those innovative solutions at scale and then get those out to patients. So from there, I was there for a year. Then I had a short stint in Singapore, working as a validation engineer, trying to transfer a manufacturing line out there. After that, I was working in Minneapolis starting my career in quality. So I was working on working with remediation projects, trying to help Medtronic lift a warning letter out there for a year. And then from there, I continued my career in quality, moving more to design assurance and risk management at a much smaller medical device company down in Columbia, Maryland. So at the time I was working at ACell, we were making wound dressings and surgical meshes out of big bladders. That we were actually bought by Integra Life Sciences a year ago, or back in December 2021. So 2020. So after that, I actually just started a new role at a new company a month ago. So I've made the jump from medical devices into pharma. So now I'm working as a quality engineer at BioNTech in Maryland right now. So right now I'm still figuring out learning all the differences from working in medical devices and how that translates over to pharma right now.
I think I'm next. I'm Lorraine. I graduated in 2015. My concentration was biomechanics and human performance, and I did a minor in human factors and ergonomics. I did all three of my co-ops at Exponent. Lauren was actually my supervisor. And I did all three of those co-ops in the biomedical engineering practice, where I was involved in testing medical devices, and I really learned, just so much there. I went on to work at Exponent, but not in their BME practice. I ended up working in their human factors practice, where I examined, safety and related usability of different consumer products through designing and moderating user studies. I also did a lot of statistical analysis of large-scale consumer product databases. While I was there, I worked on my master's in human-computer interaction, focusing on e-learning technologies. So my research was in understanding how applying e-learning technology and universal design principles to create interactive courseware benefited students who had hearing loss. And those students were in like various STEM programs. Now I work at Comcast as a senior user researcher in customer experience and accessibility. So I conduct research to understand behaviors and interactions of customers with a variety of different products, and work towards, promoting designing inclusively. This past semester, I was an adjunct faculty, and I oversaw a lab section of the BMES 102 freshman engineering design.
Okay, and I guess I am the youngest. So I graduated from Drexel back in 2017. I guess biomed kind of found me. I actually started at Drexel as a bio major, as a pre-med. Decided I didn't want to do med school and fell into engineering and basically did a concentration in biomed. And I guess my experience started, I worked with Dr. Throckmorton and did my capstone with her, basically developing a cardiac roller pump for patients with lymphedema, which is a subcondition of congestive heart failure. And got to present the project in Chicago, which kind of opened other doors to learn more about what med devices had to offer and what biomed really meant. Luckily, but my industry experience has taken a different turn. I started my industry experience working for a generic pharma company known as Lupin Pharmaceuticals in method development and validation and some R&D work. Basically more so in analytical chemistry type of base of wet lab work. We did everything from basically start to finish. So anything that's first to file, all testing involved in both filing data and post-filing data. So both quality and pre-quality work, excuse me. And spent about 3 years there. And I have been, now I'm at J&J in Janssen, working in quality control, to kind of get a feel for something a little different. It's still on the analytical chemistry side, but we do work with some devices. So we do injectables and test them basically for market products, but everything from oral dosages to ointments to topical products to injectables are included. Do the full testing basically involved in that for stability. And I'm actually going to be going back for my PhD this fall in biomedical engineering. So yeah, after working in the industry, I guess I learned more about what I wanted and realized I did not want to do quality control work or kind of work in analytical chemistry. So I'm going back for my PhD in biomed and hope to end up back in development. So
this is for anyone. I know some of you touched on this a little bit, but in regards to doing co-ops and or research at Drexel, how did that inform your choices for choosing what job you did once you graduated and did it? Like how did that work for you? Did you really like your co-op and that's why you chose the job that you chose, or did you really hate your co-ops and that's why you picked something different?
For me, I really liked my co-ops, and none of them, well, they don't have much directly to do with what I do now. However, when I was there, it was the same theme. And they would have all these meetings about what to do about FDA and what to do for the 510K or whatever regulatory submission they're working on at the time. You know, how they do the test, how to manufacture the device to minimize FDA scrutiny. And it was just like, FDA was like just this big dark cloud hanging over their entire process. So I was exposed to that. And I didn't think directly on it at the time, but it definitely lingered in my head for obvious reasons. So yeah, I'd say that it did, but not directly. The co-ops were great experiences though.
So I guess I had a little different experience. I actually had 3 very different co-ops from each other. I did my first one in clinical research at Jefferson, did my second one in R&D at Crayola, and I did my third one in business development and project management at a pharma company. I think in my case, it really helped me fine tune a little bit better where I wanted to take my direction post-graduation, just kind of what I wanted to start with, at least in the industry. I had eliminated a couple of options basically, and then that was why I was like, okay, I haven't really tried the wet lab and pharma type of work yet. So that was how I kind of fell into my first job. But yeah.
My experience in regards to my 3 co-ops, yeah, I did I went to a small ultrasound company initially that was sort of biomed. I mean, I existed before the school biomedical engineering was just a graduate program when I was in undergrad, so I was in the EE. So I did one co-op in ultrasound, troubleshooting different circuit boards that fell out of the assembly process and tried to fix them. Then I went to a defense contractor and did some simulation of Unix systems talking between the ground and the satellite. And I can't even remember my third one. That's bad. But anyway, the point being, I just realized those were things I didn't want to do, and that kind of pushed me towards graduate work. Because I think I went to graduate school because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And at that point, I sort of decided to mate my disease, my chronic or my autoimmune disease in terms of diabetes with my profession, my career. And that's when I went to talk to Dr. Honorol, got into the School of Biomedical Engineering, and from there, my story is networking. Ever since I met Moshe, my undergraduate systems professor, I never went into anything cold. Every job I went to, I had a network of people, and the job was offered to me, and that's kind of how I progressed in my career. So I mean, everybody's career path is going to be different, but especially for people in engineering, sometimes we tend to be introverted. That can make it very difficult. But getting out there and interfacing with other people is really important. At least it's the story of my career.
I think one thing that happened with me between my co-ops and when I started working was that when I was looking for actual full jobs after graduating, was that I was applying for a lot of research roles or product development roles without having gone through a lot of that experience. So like when I had graduated from Drexel, I went the research route. So I had 2 co-ops, and then I defended a master's thesis instead of doing senior design. So when I went that route, there was a lot of things that I realized that I was missing out on. So that was why I couldn't get the full-time job initially. So that's why I found contract work that I was able to do, that I was still able to use the skills that I had, and then also broaden what I knew and learn a lot more at that time. So I think like my first couple of years working, that's when I was able to like learn as much as I could in order to keep growing in my career.
Thank God for LinkedIn. I remember my other co-op was with Traycore AEL, another defense contractor.
Yeah.
When you get as old as me, you start forgetting.
Yeah, I can add. So I came to Drexel so sure that I would do 3 co-ops at 3 different companies to get 3 different experiences. But Exponent is really the gift that kept giving. I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. There were a lot of really diverse opportunities, really great mentors to learn from. And I was benefiting from just deepening practical, technical experience and knowledge. And so I stayed for all three. I got to do 3 different things across 3 different co-ops, and my co-ops also built into my master's thesis since I was in the BSMS program. So it made sense as it did. It convinced me that industry was something that I really wanted to move into. But I'd also say that I don't think that was really the last step of defining my career path. I feel like every experience I got in the real world also helped inform, my next opportunity. So I'd say co-op definitely helps you understand where to go after graduation, but there's a lot more learning and discovery to be done even after that.
I just want to know like your general experiences after graduating, and how you decide what type of master to pursue, as well as like how that affected your career, how much like that master's was actually valued as you went forward.
Yeah, I could talk about this a little bit. So if you don't know already, Exponent employs lots and lots of PhD level consultants. We are a consulting firm. And so you need to be the expert in your field. So I was fortunate enough to be offered a job while I was still in undergrad to begin right after I graduated undergrad. And I knew that I needed an advanced degree. I also knew that I didn't really want to get a PhD because that just wasn't me. I wasn't research minded. I wanted to do the consulting. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to get out there. I wanted to help people. So I kind of just did the non-thesis master's. I just got it. I got it as quickly as possible as I could with working full time. And for me, I think the experience level of being in this industry has been more beneficial for what I do than actually the master's. It was more of just getting that degree after my name a little bit. And the real world experience and that consulting was really where I was learning and really getting my skill set up. I think in the consulting industry, that is, sometimes that experience in those years is really what counts to get you the jobs, to just get you going. So I kind of didn't have a choice. I knew I at least needed to get a master's, but I knew I didn't have it in me to do the PhD. Because without that passion to do a PhD, I think it would be really hard to go through that process.
And one other thing I would add is there are other types of certifications you can get based on what role you end up looking for in industry too. So like if you end up going the project manager route, then there's different certifications you can get with regards to project management. If you go the quality engineering route, there are hundreds of certifications with regards to quality that are out there. The auditing routes, same with that. So that's where there's other alternatives to with regards to different types of certifications as well that are useful in your career.
I think that's why the BSMS program has so many students too. I think that, like Priyanka, like to come out and have that already really gets you that leg up, and then allows you to take maybe some of that extra time to get that certification and to get that other, the MBA or something like that, gives you another opportunity there by doing that BSMS. And a lot of times biomed kids that are coming into the university are already ahead on credits, and it's not that much more of a hardship to do that degree. I think in retrospect, I probably should have done it, but I liked my extracurricular activities and didn't want to, sacrifice those nighttime things to do the BSMS. Should I probably have done it? Maybe, but it's too late now. But taking those opportunities then may really help you. You put in a little bit more time now, but you get it done in that 5 years, leaving yourself some more time to hit the ground running in a career where you can spend the time to study for the fundamentals of engineering exam, maybe a PE, maybe a PMP, whatever that other credential is, since you've already gotten that master's out of the way.
So I'll just comment like on the flip side. I didn't do my master's in biomedical engineering, kind of nothing really related to BME per se. I did it in human computer action, and I pursued that master's after I worked for a couple of years. And for me, when I was in school, I looked at BSMS, and then I thought about doing a master's in BME. But it just didn't seem like the right fit. So there's also, for me, it was best to like graduate with my BS, and then work for a bit in like the human factors field and try and figure out, you know, is it a human factors master I want? Do I want to do mechanical engineering? And ultimately decided on human computer interaction, which was like a really good fit for me. So I think sometimes it helps just to work for a little bit and get some experience under your belt so you can figure out, you know, what you want to pursue.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Obviously, me coming into Drexel with a pre-med background and kind of like pretty much, I think until my 4th year, I was still planning to go to med school. So I definitely wanted to take the time after graduation to kind of play the waters and see what was out there. I'll actually take, so I have a cousin who is a patent lawyer who told me when I was trying to figure out where I kind of wanted to take my journey that combining degrees and backgrounds is a great way to get a varied exposure. So considered law school obviously at one point, but the reason why I obviously went back with the PhD thing, knowing one that I wanted to end up in formulation and development and kind of the forefront of the runnings. And just being in the industry, I've realized that you kind of just need to have it to be able to get to that point. So I kind of just pulled the plug and decided to go back for it. But yeah, I definitely would just say, if you're not sure, take the time to at least play the waters. It's worth it sometimes. But if you know you want to do it, then I'd say go for it during your time at Drexel.
I think Manisha gives a good point. Sometimes you just need that degree just to get in the door. And I think Lauren also mentioned that with Exponent. It all depends. The process of getting an advanced degree, after finishing my PhD, I think it's less about the specific topic, is more about the process, because you basically everything is changing. You're learning, we're learning things every day. So if we can develop the mindset to ingest that new knowledge and then make sense of it and how it applies to your particular problem, that's definitely what I learned as a graduate student.
Yeah, I would agree. In my experience, working through my master's thesis, my biggest learning was learning how to learn. And I think just the skill set of being able to formulate, you know, a curious research question, kind of come up with a path on how to figure it out and how to defend it. That's something that I've used in a lot of different facets going forward. I also like the previous comment around finding the right fit. I think it's definitely worth the time and effort to do that. So I actually rotated a little bit. I did a brief research assignment outside of Exponent before I came over. That was really helpful in showing me that I didn't like that environment, that research project, or that particular team. And I also interviewed for 10 other research opportunities, some at Drexel, some at Exponent, and one with another partner before I landed on that particular one. So I think really looking for me, it was fit with the area of research, something that would interest and excite me, but also the mentor, the people I'd work with, and the path that it would put me on were all deciding factors.
I had a question. For those who pursued their master's degrees without a thesis, do you think that this limited you in any way in terms of opportunities? And if so, would you have gone back and done your thesis instead?
I think it has limited me just because I don't have a core area to hang my hat on to say I'm an expert in here based on a thesis or a publication. I can say that I'm an expert based on experience now because I'm 20 years in, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I didn't have that one thing that says I know this topic really, really well. And again, I think it depends on the industry, but I don't have that publication background that a lot of people have. my experience comes in real world and things that I can't write on my resume because of confidentiality. So, thinking of that, thinking of what you really are passionate about in a research area to get that publication, to get, that body of knowledge and really become an expert in it may be beneficial to you. But the people that did that, I'd like to hear from.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that really quick. This wasn't my particular path, but just speaking to at least the hiring process in my company, being able to communicate and write is very important. And I think the thesis is a huge part of that, sort of acknowledging and understanding the background. But other companies do this too, but we go so far as to request writing samples. So we'll send a few, publications to a candidate, and we'll have them write some sort of, not a meta-analysis, but a summary of the articles we're sending them, what are the recurring themes, etc. And we really try to gauge their ability to write, communicate, etc. on that live sample versus what we're seeing in the resume, especially with the thesis or any other supporting work. So I just want to throw that out there about the sort of live writing sample in case a thesis is not an option for you.
Kind of along similar lines, I had a question about like skills that you look for when you're hiring. I don't know if all of you had the experience of hiring someone, but just either skills on a resume or something similar, asking someone to write an analysis. What kind of things are you looking for when you're looking at younger biomedical engineers?
I have a lot of I have some experience and a lot of opinions about that. Yeah, I think one of the major attributes you need is communication skills, and that's definitely comes across when you come into an interview and having to explain different concepts in a first. There's a couple of things that you want to do. You want to understand your audience, because you might be very deep into a topic, but if you don't read your audience correctly, you can pretty much lose them by being too technical. So those are those different types of things that you try to assess in a face-to-face or an over video conference type of interview. So being able to speak concisely about any given topic, and not to wander. You need to, if you have a certain point to make that point, and then stop there. And I'll stop there.
So I do a lot of hiring of co-ops, and a lot of the things we look for is just that enthusiasm too, and that willing to learn, right? Especially when you're getting into your first job, when you don't have a lot of experience, right? Having that, like, look, I've done all these things, I've taken all these courses at Drexel, but like, I really want to learn what you do, and I'm really passionate, I'm really interested. That to me, especially if it's your first job, I want to teach you, I want you to learn. And so the more I see that out of you, that you want to learn, that goes a long way. The other thing I really kind of along the communication lines is your software skills. And by software, I don't mean if you can program, I don't mean that. I mean, can you use Word and Excel and PowerPoint? And can you do it well? Because Justin will tell you we've been at the 12th hour trying to get documentation in, and the documents that are messy, and like, you got to be able to use Word and Excel and pivot tables and automatic figure numbering. And I know Dimitri's probably shaking his head because he knows how many times he's heard me say this. Those are the things though that will just make you shine and be a really integral member of a team. Because it helps you communicate better if you have those skills. And so you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't type, like physically type with both of your hands and all your fingers and use Word and Excel, it will slow your team down. And I know it seems kind of crazy to say that, but I've seen it happen over time.
Yeah, and I can attest to what Lauren was saying. I'm trying to work through a broken hand right now and typing with one hand, and it is extremely just miserable, just trying to get work done and not very efficient at all. But also, on the regulatory side, and this is very unique and very specific and probably not a common thing you'll see in other companies, but when we hire people out of college, we're not really looking for any sort of like regulatory specific knowledge. We're looking for people who can communicate. I would say that's probably 50% of what we're looking for. A lot of that we figure out during the interview. The rest of it is largely ambition. Do you want to do this? Do you want to stay here? Do you want to contribute? Do you want to add value, etc.? The technical aspects, it kind of like gets you in the door. Beyond there, it's really how well can we gauge that you want to contribute to a team, work with others, work well independently, etc.
I think to dovetail on Justin though, and Justin, I know a lot of people don't come in with the regulatory knowledge, but if you intend to work for a medical device company, you should know how the FDA works and the regulatory process. I know Drexel offers classes on it as well, but the FDA website has its own series of slide decks and things that you can learn. And I think that that's something like going in there and just having a knowledge of the regulatory process will go a long way for many of the types of jobs that biomedical engineers are going to apply to over the years. And the information is so readily available, people don't realize that. That there's CDRH modules and things you can go through and actually learn that process yourself.
Yeah. And to add to that, if you really want to do a good job of getting into the weeds, FDA has a lot of databases that are very good that no one knows about. Whenever they clear a 510K or approve a PMA, all the approval details are there for that specific device. So for like a PMA, you can see the clinical trial that was run, the inclusion exclusion criteria, primary endpoints, all the testing they did, mechanical, cadaver, animal biocompatibility, etc. It's all laid out there. So if you want to get an idea of what these companies are doing in order to get their devices approved by FDA, go right to the databases and just start looking at recent approvals.
One thing I'll also bring up is, or I think someone else might have mentioned too, like how we actually think through problems. That's also something that's very important that I usually look for whenever I'm interviewing anyone. So if there's a specific line on there saying that someone's worked through or that they have certain experience, I'll ask questions about times where they would have run into a certain problem related to that experience, how they worked through it, and then any other obstacles that would have come along that way. Because at least from an operations and a quality standpoint, we're very interested in making sure that if problems come up, we're able to address them as quickly as possible. Because what that means, if that problem lingers, what that means is that there's potentially, we're not getting product out to any healthcare professionals that would need our products. So that's another thing that I would also look for. So how we talk about, or how we're able to solve that problem, then also how we communicate that problem to other stakeholders within that company.
So question was, what is one piece of advice you would give to a graduating senior who's looking for a job in industry to be successful throughout their job search process?
I can tell you about a trend in my organization. A lot of our direct hires have previously done a co-op or some type of internship with us. I know as a graduating senior, it's a little too late to have that type of advice, but that's a trend I've definitely seen. We get to test drive you.
I think LinkedIn as well, seeing if you have any friends at Drexel that work there, who knows who. A lot of times, somebody has come through the program. They've gone to Drexel, and in my experience, Drexel alumni, kind of stick together. So, if you see that name, you see the thing, you can kind of message them. I've answered lots of questions and messages that have come through when I see it's, a Drexel, especially a Drexel Biomed. There's lots of groups on LinkedIn as well, like just for the Drexel Biomed people who are alumni and things like that, and looking at those sorts of connections. I'm not the best about using my LinkedIn, but I'm trying to get better about it. But it seems to me that that's kind of the new norm.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And I have a live example. I mean, I work with a number of people who went to Clemson, and for some reason, all these other people keep coming in who went to Clemson because they all hit up their alumni through LinkedIn and get into my company that way. And I'm a little tired of working with Clemson people. So it would be nice to have some, north of Mason-Dixon line people coming in. I did have one Drexel grad who worked at MICRA for maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and she was excellent. But aside from that, I'm a lone Drexler dragon.
You also need to attend all the job fairs that Drexel has to offer and everyone has to offer. My husband does a lot of recruiting and has said that the job fairs are just, not as well attended anymore. And you just never know who you're going to meet, where you're going to, end up, and who's going to be sitting at that table. And maybe they didn't have a position, but they really liked you, and somehow they want to fit you in their team and make a position. You just never know. So it doesn't hurt to attend those kinds of events. You just never know who you'll run into.
Yeah, I'd say just from my experience, obviously still a novice, but I think the two things I would say, one is obviously, yes, your network is your best friend. Meeting people, even if at the job fair, if you already have a job, I think it's a great way just to network with people in different companies and learn about different experiences that they're looking for. Like I remember I talked to the guy who was at the table for the CIA, and they love new hires. They're like looking for people who are willing to wait that 1 year long application process just to work for the CIA. But yeah, and I think the second piece of advice I'd give, especially if you're somebody who's not entirely sure what specific type of company or specific type of job you're looking for, just be open to newer opportunities to learn something new, because I have, just from my own experiences, I've done completely different types of work throughout my co-ops and my professional work experience, but I've been able to use something or the other along the way from the past, even if it's completely different. That's helped me in my professional work experience.
Say you don't have the opportunity to like attend career fairs. Would you, how else would you like, say, get a bigger network? We just
Have you
like,
guys reached out to the co-op office as well? I know that the co-op office has employers that will come back to them if they have full-time hires and things that they're looking for. Was my understanding that they have those opportunities. There's some, I think, career counselors as well that are available to you there.
I was going to say dragon jobs, career counselors. Also, it just, I guess, to kind of add on is if you tell friends and family, if you're looking for a job, they might just know someone or know someone who knows someone. So it's just really helpful to kind of put it out there that you're looking for work, and you might find something that way as well.
Yeah, I would say I did the exact same thing. Actually, reached out to family friends who had been in the industry, and I'd also say update your LinkedIn, just like have it up to date, have your resume on there. Keeping active on LinkedIn is a great way, even just for recruiters to reach out to you. I'd also say, I mean, depending on your level of comfort, you could, if you see somebody who has a job that you're interested in, you could message them, reach out to them, set up a one-on-one meeting with them, just try to like learn more about what they do and, build your network slow and steady that way too. I've definitely tried that, and people are more willing to do it than you think initially, but it's a great way just to meet people who are in the industry. who are doing things that you may be interested already.
Anytime I'm on LinkedIn, actually, if one of my connections posts something like, oh, we're hiring at my company, I always like it because even though I'm not looking for a job right now, one of my colleagues or someone else like I'm connected with might be looking for a job and they can see like what you've liked. So that's really helpful too. If you just go on LinkedIn and see what people are liking, what they're posting, you might find something there too.
So
Yeah, to echo this same LinkedIn thing, support, like my last 2 jobs that I got were off of LinkedIn. So when I got started my job in this past February and also back in 2016, both were, or though when I started ACEL, that was through the recruiter reaching out to me at that time, and then talking to them and setting up all the interviews. And then the job that I just got started now, that one I saw the posting on LinkedIn and then reached out there.
For those that do go the graduate school route, definitely attending conferences is a way to network with other people in your space. Always my mentor had his words of advice to me was, you know, when you go to a conference and you're listening to a presentation, always formulate a question in your mind and go up to the podium and ask it, which is very intimidating typically for somebody very early in their career, but being able to, again, I'll fall back on communication.
great. Oh, so I have another question. All right, so how often, like maybe when you were looking for a job when you were beginning, or like right now since you're working in the industry, how often do people or the company hire like part-time people? Because I haven't actually seen a lot of part-time recruitment. Most of the times they're full-time and you have to like stay there for like a year or something.
So I guess in terms of so you're talking about, I mean, we have internships, co-ops, and we also do contractors. Contractors, we can do we're flexible in terms of the hours, and I think that is at the end of 2 years of service, we have to make a decision either to let you go or keep you. I know that several. I've seen all of those different tools be used in order to get young engineers in the company, and all of them have either some have been let go, others have been absorbed, offered jobs from each one of those types of mechanisms. And in terms of getting those jobs, yeah, I mean, we go, somebody mentioned the career fairs. We do go to career fairs a lot. And then we also post on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, things of that nature, in order to try to get co-ops. And then most big companies also have, if you're if you're looking for a full-time job, and you find a company that you like, go keep checking in on their careers page, because there's a lot of turnover currently. So there's a good possibility something that wasn't there a couple months ago will be there, and you just keep trying.
It may also be, also from a contract standpoint, you might be able to find more part-time contracts if you're looking for like reduced hours. Sometimes companies may post part-time roles as contractors rather than as full-time or as a salaried person. So that's another possibility right there.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Like I thought contract work was like a set time that like 40 hours a week. I didn't know that there were some that they were flexible. That's kind of new.
Yeah, it depends on the role. So sometimes there may be some QA roles or some review, like technical writing roles that are part-time, but then it also depends on the company or what they're looking for at the as well.
Okay. By the way, I am asking this because I am looking for part-time contract work, maybe. So that's all.
Yeah.
You know.
So the other possibility is if you have previous co-op experience, they may also you may be able to work with them to see if they'll hire you part-time. So that's something we've done with co-ops that we've had in the past, was that they were with us for 6 months. And then when they were going back to school, they would come back and work with us for maybe 20 hours a week. But so that was also from University of Maryland. So since they're local to us, so there you may be able to find that also as well with companies up in Philly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like what Karen said, I actually had a friend who was working part-time. I'm so sorry, the weather here is crazy. I had a friend who was working part-time with one of his co-ops his senior year, while he had like a lighter load in classes. So that's definitely a possibility.
I think one thing to add there is that another place you could look is if you're a part of any like organizations like the Biomedical Engineering Society, or I'm a part of a couple local chapters related to human factors. Sometimes when we attend meetings at those, those local chapter meetings, people will advertise for jobs. Sometimes they're contract, sometimes they're full-time. So you might want to check with any like local society that you're a part of.
I just had a question. What changes do you expect to happen in your respective industry in the future, and how can us, the students, prepare for those changes?
I think people are not staying at positions for as long as they've been. And there's a lot of turnover. And so, if you want to bounce around, there's probably always going to be opportunities, just the way I think people are turning over jobs and moving on and changing locations very frequently. So there's always going to be those opportunities. So always keep looking, because if you're not happy in something, something else may open up for you. And on the flip side, if you really are committed and you love where you work, you will have the opportunity to rock it up and do that if you do a really good job.
I can speak just from personal experience at J&J. There's a big push towards digitalization. I'm actually part of a team that's currently actually working on fully implementing electronic notebooks and all. Actually, we're behind on that, but that's definitely a big push. But yeah, there's an entire digital showcase that goes on at J&J, and there's just a big push for automation and digitalization. So I'd say just not necessarily go out of your way to maybe learn something different, but try to just, there's enrichment courses that you could take just to like learn more about different types of technology that's out there and ways that you can obviously just provide some knowledge to maybe help improve the process at a company that you end up in.
I think something that I'm seeing in my field right now is just like a huge push for more inclusive design, moving accessibility considerations to the left in the design process. So when you're thinking about an idea and you're thinking about how you're going to build something, also think about the greatest number of users that can use it, and just really trying to understand more about like human-centered design. I feel like there's a lot of talking about human-centered design, even if you're maybe not designing something that won't be used. If you're designing something that's meant to be used by an expert, there's still other ways that you can think about human-centered design, whether that be in the instruction manual or when you're writing up different reports and submitting them to maybe a business team or a design team.
Going off of what Manisha was talking about, so one thing I've seen too is there are lots of companies will have individual systems for keeping track of different types of data. So different types of records, manufacturing data, and a manufacturing execution system for keeping track of your manufacturing system. But then these systems don't actually end up talking to each other. So some of the things that I've been working on for the past couple of years was figuring out ways to get these integrated, and so that these different systems can start communicating with each other, start again automating some of the data analysis that we perform, and also being able to make decisions faster. So that's something that we've been working on and trying to make sure that we have making sure that people that we hire also have the skills to start thinking about things more broader and be able to think about solving problems that way.
Yeah, two things I'll contribute based on some, more current and contemporary trends with FDA. I'm not sure how much these really, fit in with the sort of BME mold, but if you want some insight into where FDA is going with things, I would say first, creative clinical trial solutions, meaning not just your standard randomized controlled trial, but maybe some blend of retrospectively collected data and a prospective series. A lot of that is based on the push for using more real world evidence to be able to support device approvals. And companies don't want to spend 20, 40, $60 million on clinical studies anymore. And so that may sound kind of boring, but on the other end too, biocompatibility is a huge push with FDA. It's probably the biggest thorn in every medical device company's side right now is biocompatibility. All the labs, NAMSA, WuXi, Nelson, they have backlogs more than 6 months to catch up with all the testing. Animal specimens aren't readily available. Cadaver specimens aren't readily available. Some of it is just because of COVID and supply chain issues. But just the biocompatibility requests, and I realize cadavers don't have to do biocompatibility, but the labs do this work too. But anything having to do with biocompatibility materials manufacturing, there's a gigantic hole and void that needs to be filled right now.
If there's no other questions or comments, I think that'll be it for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. This was really great. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your night and a good upcoming weekend.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.